Because I got to tell you, I hated play against you guys when you started playing these paddles.
The third shot drop is extinct.
There was always this little anxiety behind hitting with the gearbox because there was always that little element of, I can't fully control this paddle.
Is it going to accentuate something that you do well, or is it going to help you with something that you don't do as well?
Make the ball soft.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Pirate Talks. This is actually episode 4. For those of you that are saying, well, what happened to the other 3 episodes? That was done over 3 years ago before most of you have even started playing pickleball. And it was done horribly with Zoom, and so we are going to reboot this, and we're going to do something a little bit different here. Most of the podcasts you see is just 1 or 2 people, and I thought we'd do something a little bit different. So I've got a panel of guys here with me. You have watched these guys play on the channel for years now, and so I'm going to have these guys intro themselves, and then we're going to just jump right into it. Today we're going to be talking about the power paddles, and we're going to get these guys' opinions on the hot models that are out now that are going to be just under the legal threshold of making illegal paddles, and we're going to jump right in. So first, to my left here, Mark Johnson. Mark, why don't you tell everybody who you are and how long you've been playing and what's your current rating?
Thanks, Keith. Mark Johnston. I've been playing for about, I was talking to Scott earlier today, I think between 7 and 8 years ago. So when I started, I've been playing fairly serious for about 5 years. My duper, and I know all the range is about 5.10 right now.
What?
Yes. You can look it up on your phone. I know you thought it was higher, but that's all it is because I beat you. But that's, maybe you have to things it up.
Exactly.
Okay, and to my right here, this is Dave Nell. Dave?
Well, yeah, my real name is Petrus Georg, but in America they just call me Dave. So I started playing, I don't know, probably...
9 or 10 years now.
No, I mean...
I remember you early days in Clear One. Long time ago.
One wasn't even built.
Yeah. Long time ago.
I've been playing a while. I don't have a rating, so I'm boycotting tournaments.
He's a 3-5 at best.
So I will not pay money to play tournaments, and until they bring the prices down, I will not play. So no rating for me.
Yeah, he is 3-5 at best. He's where most of the comments are coming from. And Scott?
Scott Graves. I've played pickleball for a while now. I think it's been 8 or 9 or 10 years. And I think my rating's like 4.9 or something like that.
Impossible.
Right. So for me, myself, I have been playing since 2016. I looked at when I bought my first paddle set, 2016. So, I'm one of the old school guys. When I started playing, Cal Yates was the #1 player in the world. So that's how far back we all go. So anyway, we're going to jump right in. We're going to talk about the paddles. So all of you have actually played the paddles that are now being made illegal. So we've got the Gearbox Power Pro, we got the TA Mod 15, the Yolas, and then the Yola 3S's. And so some of these paddles...
Ron Bus.
The Ron Bus, yeah. You played the Ripples. You played actually multiple versions of the Ripples. So first, let's talk about the power paddles that they're making illegal. And I just want you guys to share your opinion on the way the game changed when you started playing those paddles. Because I got to tell you, I hated play against you guys when you started playing these paddles.
Yeah, you still hate playing against us because power is still there. Well, I think that the paddles are, just changed the game to where it's not pickable anymore. It's just like Scott shows up, and I mean he dinks once a month, and he just drives everything, and he's got a racquetball arm, so the ball comes on pretty fast. So the third shot drop is extinct. So I'm glad that they're bringing the paddles back. I would have said they should bring back the ball, make the ball softer, because to
towards like a Franklin type of thing.
Yeah, because if you really have to police, if you have to police 800 new paddles a year coming out, they're never going to, it's just going to be.
That's true.
Listing, delisting. So they should have just rolled back the ball.
Well, no, that's funny because you were the Dura prima donna. Like anybody played a slower ball than the Dura, you're like, why don't we have a Dura? Why don't we have a Dura? And now you're like, like soft balls. That's a little bit interesting.
Well, number one is like,
he's getting older. He needs slower balls.
Well, the thing is, okay. Number one, we're playing in Florida where the humidity is sky high. It's always hot and humid.
Yeah.
and we're playing outside. Who wants to dink 100 shots with a Franklin? So that's the reason for the Dura. Also, the Dura makes you a better player. So,
Okay.
David, you sound like you're from your golf side when you're talking about slowing the ball down, the technology. I think pickleball has gone through that same iteration that golf has to try to figure out what are we going to do.
it has to, yeah, it has to,
so-
because people are, putting pine tar on paddles, and they're, knocking them in their boots and putting them in freezers. It's just like there's so much stuff they can do to the paddle. So if they don't go out and test every paddle, it's not like a golf club. I mean, the golf club, they're not going to change the golf club. If it's legal, it's legal. It's going to stay legal. It might break eventually, but these paddles, change over time. So during a tournament, they're going to have like 100 people just testing paddles eventually.
Now for you, Scott, you played the Power Pro as well, like
For a long time.
You played that one for a long time.
A year and a half, I'd say.
Right now, so was that a hard transition for you going to a Supreme Power paddle? Like when that first came out, we were like, holy crap! That one in the Yola, the first Yola that came out, was it the 3S? I think that was just ridiculous, through the roof power. Now, like when you started playing that power paddle, what changed for you?
So when I first started playing with that paddle, I absolutely adored it. I thought it was fantastic. The racquetball player in me really loved that paddle because I knew that the power was always going to be there. And the thing that I noticed after playing with it for a year and a half, and I also wanted to support Gearbox because it's ultimately like a racquetball company, and and I thought it was great. When I stopped playing with that because they said they were going to sunset it, and I went back to playing with, that's the only paddle I had for a year and a half. I went back to playing with the Hudef Viva Pro 3, which is, it's much less power, a lot more control. And what I noticed is that I didn't realize it for a long time, but when I played with the Gearbox, there was always this little anxiety behind hitting with the Gearbox because there was always that little element of, I can't fully control this paddle.
Okay.
And when I went to playing with other paddles, in fact, even many of the ones that we're going to be talking about today, that anxiety just faded away. So I didn't have to worry about, and I didn't see that contrast because I was just playing with the Gearbox.
Right.
And when I went to playing with something else, and I actually thought like when I went to play in tournaments, I was much more consistent, and I ultimately don't need the power because I can hit the ball plenty hard as it is. And so I said to myself, I'm not going to go play with a paddle that powerful. And I started saying as well, like a lot of other people, that those Hudef paddles should be banned for sure. Even though I played with it for a year and a half, it was too much power. It changed the game. There were certain people that we played with at Clear One where we did not want them having a power paddle in their hand. It changed the game so much, and it was frustrating, and it was just gross, and all these other things. So I appreciate how they've moved into softer paddles, and the paddles that we're going to talk about today are much better in my opinion.
Now, do you think what it did is take away a little bit of the chess match of the game, because it was like basically just hit everything hard? Like this guy never dinked, never hit third shot drops anymore. Like he
right, and David, and with the Gearbox Pro, he drove with that one really well. In fact, the ball would like really move really well. He's in fact one of the better drivers. But you're right, it did put like an element, and even if you have really, really fast hands, sometimes you just couldn't hit the ball. And so I appreciate that has been much more curtailed, and it's gotten back to a lot more game in the kitchen, which I definitely appreciate.
Yeah, but also, I enjoy playing with the Pro just from the standpoint of practicing. I would never play a tournament with it because it's just too unforgiving. But just practicing with it, it really, because it's so poppy, it really trains you to soften your hands, really trains you to hit the sweet spot.
Yep. Well, I always said if you play with that paddle, you can literally play with anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Literally.
Yeah. So,
everything else is, dream compared to that from control
so that
standpoint.
was a very, very tough paddle to play with. And I would say, like even, this Selkirk 00810 mil, it's the same thing. It's like a blade in golf. It's made for the pros. But I can see like 4.0s and lower play with the 10 mil 008.
Very uncontrollable,
Yeah.
Now, Mark, you've been starting to play with a little bit more power paddles. You used to play the Grooven. That didn't have enough power for you. You've gone through all the same paddles these guys have gone through. You played the Gearbox Power Pro. You've hit the Ultimate Power Pro, the Ultimate Pro, and you played the TA Mod, right? And you played the Yolas. So for you, what does it do for your game? What did it help you with your game to play with the more powerful paddles?
When we first started playing, there was so much more of short game. There wasn't third shot drive. It was third shot drop. And so that was how I played the game. And we used to always say, we'd say unattackable. If the ball was below the net, it was unattackable. With the technology change and the paddles, then there was hardly any unattackable. So I had to figure out how to put up more pace. And so I always looked at paddles as is it going to accentuate something that you do well, or is it going to help you with something that you don't do as well? And for me, it was always, I could figure out, I played the Gearbox Flow too, and I figured out how to hit short after a while, but it took a long time. So I could figure that part out, but I couldn't create power with some of these other paddles. And so for me, it was good for my game. I'm excited that we're going back, that theirs are going to be banned. But for me to can play with some of these guys, I play with that mod, and I'd be disingenuous to say I didn't like it. It was great off of the pop. Not mine wasn't, but the other ones were. But it definitely helped in that power and gave me something more than I had before.
Yeah, well, and I think I'm gonna take a pause here, and I want to just walk people through the progression of pickleball. So we're going to be talking about the terms Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, and this is the progression of pickleball. So when we first started playing, polypropylene cores were the only thing. There was no such thing as a carbon-faced paddle. So now there came a carbon-faced paddle, and that was a Gen 1. That goes all the way back to the Electrum. I'm gonna dust off some archives.
Still got it in my car.
The Electrum, all of you guys played the
we
Electrum,
did.
and it was one of the first paddles, and that was before even the term Gen 1 came out. They had foam injected walls, so they did foam injection around the edges. The Electrum did, and so they were one of the first ones. They did foam injection, not the same as the thermoform foam injected. So then Gen 1 came out, where like the CRBNs came out, and they put a carbon-faced peel ply on the paddles, and they got made illegal. Remember the U.S. Open debacle? Ben Johns got beat by allegedly. He got beat by J.W. Johnson, raised a big stink, and then the CRBNs got banned. Then the next generation was the Gen 2s. And the Gen 2s, they started doing thermoformed. They started sealing the edges all the way around. They made these stiffer paddles. Then we started having the delamination problem, right? That was the delamination problem. Then they came out with the Gen 3s, and the Gen 3s were completely illegal. These things had 2 layers of foam in it, so we had foam around the edges, then we had an inner layer of foam that made the paddle actually behave more like a springboard. The spin was ridiculous, the power was ridiculous, completely illegal, completely dangerous, like people were getting hurt with these paddles. And now what we're going to be talking about is this year, like last year was the Kevlar faced in the Gen 2 and the Kevlar faced and the Gen 3. This year we're talking about the Gen 4, which is similar to the Gen 3. It's got multiple layers of foam, dialed back a little bit so it's a little bit more controllable, and we've got the foam cores. So now we're into a new generation of paddle types with Generation 4 paddles with also the foam core paddles. So I'm going to start with the Generation 4. So we're talking about the Ultimate Pro, right? And then the Yola Pro 4s, right? The 4s, we got the Agassi version, and we've got the 2 different versions. I've got the Hybrid, I've got the Perseus, and I've got the Agassi version. Those are the Yola Gen 4 paddles, supposedly going to be right underneath that threshold. And just to set you guys up for the threshold, the speed that they're measuring these guys are just under 57 miles an hour on the serve. Now, granted, that's done by John Q, who's not considered an upper level player, but he's one of the ones that are measuring serve speed and pop speed. So let's talk about the paddles that you guys have been playing for me. You've tested all these paddles. Let's talk about what you brought up, Scott, is the dialing down to where it's just enough power, but it's controllable. So walk me through what you thought.
It was probably about a month ago. I'll start with this one first, with the Selkirk 008. So I played with that, and right from the get-go, it wasn't weighted right, but even when I did play with it, when it was weighted, these ones are distinctly different than the foam core with the CRBN.
Yeah.
And my initial thought, and it's in stark contrast to your thought, which is why, you know, everybody likes different flavors of ice cream. I thought this paddle was just dead, like just dead. It was like, I mean, it was like hitting a dead board.
Yep.
And I was instantly like, no, I don't like it. Of course, I'll play with it and give it another shot. Whereas this one, the 10 millimeter, yeah, I played with that one this last week, and the power was definitely there, but it was uncontrollable. It reminded me of the gearbox, and so I didn't particularly care for this one. Whereas in contrast, and you can talk about it, you loved that one. You know, the red paddle, that's a fantastic paddle. Lots of power, good control. You know, I played with this one this last week as well. And
that's the Ultimate Pro. That's the dialed down version. So that's the 14
It's a
millimeter.
PD core.
Yeah.
So what they did is they took the Power Pro and they made a 16 millimeter Ultimate, and that one was a little too soft, right, Dave? Like you said, it was controllable, but it was not a power paddle whatsoever. So this is
the original Ultimate.
The original Ultimate was not considered a power paddle. That was their control version.
That one for me was the very hardest one to control.
Really?
Yeah, I got rid of it right away. I was like, I can't control this thing. It was awful.
So the one before it was more controllable than the
I thought the Pro Power was way more controllable than the Ultimate.
No.
Yeah.
That's definitely not normal.
Yeah.
That was my experience of it.
No, I mean, so the gearbox is, you know, is tough to control. Like I'm a big gearbox fan. I've had like 20 of their paddles. Same thing, Pickleball, kind of, you know, and they're innovators. So you know they've got the core that doesn't crush. So just love it. The problem is like these edgeless paddles are just, you know, very
Very low twist weight.
very low twist weight.
Very much so.
And the gearboxes, these gearboxes with the SST cores tend to be head heavy, so they're not fast in the hands.
Okay.
So
Agreed.
yeah, so when you have like the previous version of this, you can be in a firefight like in no man's land, you know.
And you'll win.
And you'll win,
Yeah.
You can Annalee Waters
That was the amazing part of the
know,
Pro Power.
5 feet from the
Hit
kitchen.
everything.
Like I noticed, like I would win almost every firefight because the ball would just take off.
Yeah. So now because I slowed this down, you know, I can't see myself playing with this.
Me neither.
So it's just like I said, you know, the gearbox, it takes a while to get used to it. It's the same thing with the core, with these foam paddles. You know, like I've been playing with the True Foam, the Carbon True. In the beginning, I hated it. It definitely needs weight. Weighted it up, and about 2 weeks after, I said, okay, this is actually not too bad. So because it's so distinctly different to polyprop, you have to give yourself. So playing with these for the first time today, you know, again, like I can't say that these are bad paddles. I mean, they feel different, but they are going to feel different. So I would say this was not too bad. Both of them spin tremendously, like they should with the foam cores. This was a little bit tougher to control, but again, you know, you have to get used to these paddles.
You felt a distinct difference between the Project 08, which I would agree with you. A lot more evenly balanced, a lot more head light compared to the CRBN because of the core. Like the CRBN, they actually had so much mass in it that, you know, a lot of people have seen the pictures out there. They actually had to cut holes in the core to make it light enough because it was so heavy at the 14 millimeter. And then they locked it in at the 14 millimeter because they didn't want to play with different sizes. So they kind of locked in on that core.
Yeah, so the foam cores, yeah, like you said, the foam cores are a little slow. But again, you know, I need to get used to this foam core before I can say, you know, the paddle is dead or, you know, whatever the case may be. So, but that's the thing with the foam cores. Tremendous spin. I like the fact it's the same thing with the band ripple, where they're kind of using the core as well for some of the spin generation. But you know, I would love to play this in a wide body, just because these foam cores are heavy. They're heavy. They head heavy. You know, compared to the robust, which is, you know, really
Fairly evenly balanced.
it's really fast.
Now, Mark, for you with playing these now, you've played the carbons, and you are coming off the T mod, and you're kind of looking for that next replacement one. Now, you've been playing mostly the 4, right? The Yola 4. So talk to me about the transition from the T mod and then taking that power off that you said you were actually enjoying, having that power playing the young guys.
Yeah, I'm finding it, Keith, I'm comparing things to the mod still. And when I look at things, I say, how does that compare? The robust red I really liked. I mean, I thought it was at a great sweet spot. It was lightweight, which really helped with my hands, and it was a solid paddle. And then when I picked up the first Gen 4 Yola, I think my initial disappointment was because everybody, some reviews said, oh, it's going to be just like the mod, it's going to be just like the 3, and it wasn't for me. I mean, it just wasn't, and whether my paddle has a little experience on it or not, it just didn't pop. Yep. But the plow through and the reliability of it, I liked from the first time. And the short game with it, I feel like I can spin it really nice and hit a lot of dinks with it. And so I think that's where I'm leaning. I've always liked 16 mil, and so I'll probably stay with that. I've just got to learn to rethink, and I give David a hard time, but I give him credit too. When I played that mod, the one thing that happened is when I was at mid-court, I could hit the ball hard. I mean, I could compete from there. I didn't really feel like I was at, and now I've got to learn again. Mid-court is to reset.
You need
Get yourself back to play.
You need to learn to play pickleball again, because you've been playing tennis for the last 6 months with the mod. So
he's still mad because he lost this morning. So sorry, Scott, but you can appreciate that when he gets beat. It's always either had a bad partner or somebody was playing different. So
well, he's not blaming the ball anymore. He used to blame the ball.
Always, it was always the ball.
If it wasn't a Dur, it was the ball's fault. But now he wants softballs. So I don't understand.
I don't know how we're
a
going
little bit Jekyll and Hyde there. Now, what do you think about hitting the foams? Like when you're going to the foam paddles, I agree with Dave. Like these are a learning curve. Like playing a foam paddle for the first time. They feel different. The ball comes off differently. The weight is different. But you didn't care for these, or
I think it's a patience issue. Is that I didn't play it enough to really get comfortable with it. I think some of the other ones, because they were like what I played before, it was a little bit easier to transition. This one I just haven't played a lot. I don't think I've had it weighted up right. That would just match me because it didn't jump out at me. I like the red a whole lot better, fit me better than some of these others, but I don't think I gave him a fair chance.
Okay. Yeah, I think that definitely takes weeks. I find that I change paddles so much because of what I do and all the reviews I do that I can play a paddle typically within the first half a game and know if it's a paddle that I could play long term. But I think these foam ones, I agree with Dave.
But you can't do an honest review, unbiased review, if you do not play a paddle for at least 2. Because I mean, all the paddles are good these days. You don't get bad paddles anymore.
It's become very difficult to differentiate.
To watch a review about a paddle is kind of like null and void these days. You gotta just play it and give it 2 weeks, and at least 2 weeks. Playing every day and see if it suits your game.
Now, what about the break-in period? Now, some of these just to reiterate, a lot of these paddles, and I would say that the gearbox probably the least, and the CRBNs probably the least out of the paddles that are on this table that have a break-in period. And the break-in period is when the peel ply actually starts to flex and it starts to relax a little bit. The ball starts dwelling a little bit more. The spin goes up and the power goes up. Now you notice it very first time, like you played the hybrid today of the Yola, brand new, first time hitting it. It felt stiff, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, but you could definitely tell that you could feel more dwell time on the paddle, which I like because that gives it more feel. And it also definitely has its power as well. It's definitely not nearly as powerful as the Gen 3s. But yeah, I think that definitely is a great paddle that a lot of people can get used to. But like Mark was saying, it's not a mod and it's not a Gearbox Pro Power. It's definitely, there's a noticeable difference in the amount of power that's between those two.
Now, what about the Agassi? Did all of you get a chance to hit the Agassi?
That one, comparatively to those ones, was a little bit was quite a bit less powerful, I thought. Okay. Definitely was a lot more controllable. and had that like hollow type
Yeah,
feel.
but don't you think that's because of the shape?
It was
it's
probably-
a shorter paddle,
For sure.
wider upstairs. So
For sure.
I thought that I mean, of all the Yolas, I would say the Agassi is my favorite. You know, I will probably, if I have to choose, if I have to play with the Yola, I'll probably play with the Anabrite
You like the
Scorpius.
14.
Yeah.
Not really because of the shape, but because of Anabrite. So, well, just
Now, actually, we'll take you back. You actually preferred that paddle when the Yolas first came out. You had tested the Colin Johns, and you also tested the Anabrite, and you picked the 14 millimeter Anabrite. And you've kind of been leaning more towards the standard shape versus the elongated, and that part of that is the control.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, like, if I have to say my two favorite paddles of all time, or back in the day, was the Gearbox G5. So that shape, and was it the G5?
I don't know.
The
but-
orange one. You also
yeah,
played it.
the GX5, I believe that's what it was.
GX5.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
like,
and the
Horrible.
Selkirk.
that's like one of your favorites of all
Oh
time.
yeah, and the Selkirk.
David, you
the
need to
Selkirk
get your head checked.
Invicta, the amped.
No, the Epic. You like the Epic.
No, the amped. So, and that's why I also like the elongated Electrum, the one that Colin Johns used to
This
play.
is-
Oh, that you played a long time.
This is a revelation. We get to see into the
Yeah.
twisted mind of David over here.
So those were some of my favorite paddles. But I think with the way that the game has where firefights are typically the way the point ends, I would say the wide body paddles are the way to go. Definitely.
Let's circle back to who are these paddles for. Now, first, let's bring up the price point. I think multiple paddles on this table are $280.
Ridiculous.
I think they all are, with the exception of this one.
The Robust Red is the only one that's actually affordable. That's like $145 before discounts. Yeah. And so, all things considered, we do get discounts on most of these paddles except the Gearbox. Gearbox does not give discounts on any paddle they sell. And it's $280. So,
And Keith, I will say, the last couple times I've been at Clear One, if they did the most popular paddle, that red, there was a lot of people that play that red. And
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some economics as well as it's a good paddle. But
It is,
For a
it is.
mid-price paddle, it's solid.
and for one of the ones, it's one of the few Gen 4s that's actually, I think, controllable and really is even across the board on all the different metrics. But so as we're talking about these paddles, $280. The first, I just want you guys real quick. Are paddles worth $280 anymore? Like is this because you're going through what, a couple a year?
Well, that's the thing.
Well,
if
at
you
least
if
a
you
couple
play with
years.
this one, you know it's going to last for a long,
Yeah, it's
long
gonna
time.
last.
The gearbox might last a year.
Yeah,
But no, it'll last longer than that. I played with mine for a year and a half, and it was fine.
It will last forever. The thing is, like, you're going to lose spin though. You're going to lose
because the
spin.
carbon face will
Yeah.
wear away.
So eventually, you have this extremely powerful paddle with no spin. So again, it's not going to last.
But I don't
So
think it's
not like a
unusual.
tennis racket.
I don't think
or-
it's unusual now in pickleball to say, yeah, you're going to have to spend $200 or $300 at least every year to buy a new paddle because the technology shifts and changes, and people just like variety and stuff. But yeah, all these other paddles, they're pushing close to $300.
And Scott, I think the biggest point that at least Yola has said about this new one is the durability, because I think that's been the frustration is every 2 or 3 months. So I agree with you. You pay $300 for a year, then that's right. But if it's every 3 months that they're going out like some of the
Right.
Gen 3s and the mods were known for, that's going to be the question over time. Does that paddle last? And if it does, and you can play it for a while, then that makes a better deal.
I think those foam paddles, though, like nothing's going to break in the core. So like Keith, you said earlier, the verdict's still out, but I think those ones are going to last quite a while too.
Well, and they're supposed to not delaminate. So, okay. So if you were a 3-5 at best, or you're watching this podcast and you're going to suggest a paddle for somebody, which one of these paddles would be for, let's call it a lower than average person, let's say lower than 4 or 5, which paddle would you put in their hand?
I would definitely take Cliff's paddle. Like economical, good power, good control, all that stuff. I mean, if you're comparing apples to apples, like that would be the one.
The Robust Red?
For sure.
And then if you were going to go on the upper tier price point?
My absolute favorite one out of all of these was the CRBN True Foam. I love that paddle. I thought it was fantastic. And yeah, it took a week or two to get used to, but I love that paddle. I think it was fantastic.
Good paddle.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the same thing. Pretty much the same thing. I think anything 16 mil, and yeah, lower level, or lower price point. Yeah, the red. I enjoy playing with the red, and in upper tier, the carbon. But I would like to play with this for like 2 weeks and give the Selkirk a good opinion. And then also, like, I don't care much for the Yolas, unless it's the 14 mil Scorpius. So when that comes out, I'll play with that. And that might be my paddle because, I like those short paddles.
Yeah, you do like the paddles, and I agree. Like, I think that the tour version of the Selkirk is probably the best shape they've come out with. Like, it is the best shape. I like the 16 millimeter. I've got that weighted up to about 8.5, but I lean more towards control paddles. So, like, I personally, I can't control any of these paddles significantly. Like, I probably, up to your point, I don't play them long enough. Like, I don't play them for a month to get used to them, and I'm used to control paddles. Mostly my grip pressure. I kill the baby bird every time I get in a firefight. I'm squeezing that paddle like I'm choking it to death. Now, Mark, what about you? And I want you to speak in not only the beginner, but as an older player, like, which one would you lean towards?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I've asked, a lot of people have asked me for paddle recommendations in that mid-level range. And previously, I've probably sent a lot of people to Vatic because I think the Vatic Pro and the other paddles were good paddles for that level. I think the red is a better quality paddle than those for the same price. I think that's where I would send people because I think it's got a little bit of everything. I think it has some pop, and I think there's some control in there.
Yeah, but the Vatics are just delamination. It's like
Well, I think they've fixed that pretty much.
Some of the newer ones are not. You're right. They're doing a better job. They were. But for beginners, I think it had a balance of pop and mid-level. I'm still hopeful for the Gen 4. I just think I got to give it a little bit more time.
Okay, a little bit better break-in period.
Yeah. I do. I think that's a good paddle. I think it's going to be a good paddle for a lot of guys like me. I've got a bunch of my friends my age that play that mod and have played that for a while. And I think they're starting to move, and I've got some good feedback from them that they're going to understand they're not going to get all the power, but there's a lot of similarities to it. Still a lot of good qualities.
That's good. That's good. And I think that this whole PB core testing is the jury's out on that. We'll talk about that next time.
It's must do. I can't believe they waited this long.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
And that's going to be it's in its juvenile phases right now. They got to figure out all the testing.
They're doing a good job. I mean, I just don't like the clamp, but they're doing a good job with that. I think it's
all right. Well, guys, I want to thank you for spending time with us on the Pirate Talks here, and I want to thank all of you that are watching. All of these paddles, you can get our discount codes in the description below, and leave your comments. What kind of paddles do you want us to talk about next? What subject do you want us to talk about? We'll leave that up to you, and we look forward to seeing you on the next podcast.